Every Jewish person should go see what went on during the war.
There was a little slip of paper which fell down from the heavens. And according to one version, the slip said, Po Lin, which in Hebrew means, here you should rest. And of course you can hear the phonetic similarity of Po Lin is the way we say Poland in Hebrew today. And according to another version of the story, it said, Po Lan Ya, here rests God. Whichever way that you take the story, the message was to these wandering people that now you could stop. And it's like they unpacked the caravans or whatever it was, and then they set up shop. And that is the story which is told of how the Jews got here.
Chachamim unevoinim. Oy Avei Hashem.
How awesome is this place? The house of God, that's what it says. And it's a verse from the Bible. It's a verse from my namesake, Yaakov, Jacob, when he goes, he's running away from his brother who wants to kill him.
Anshe emes zera kodesh b'Hashem dveikim. V'zakeini ligadem banim uvnei banim.
Oftentimes when I talk to children, when we come here, children, teenagers, I talk about the idea of not judging a book by its cover. The idea that you may see something from the outside, you may see a person who looks a certain way from the outside, but dig a little bit deeper, because deep within there may be something of such sanctity and beauty. And God help you if you miss that, if you misjudge them and you don't take the time to find that beauty inside. And one of the things which I said is that this is a day for remembering, and remembering in a very personal way, and not viewing this as someone else's history. And so one of the few things that I think we can do is, as messengers from the future, you can imagine that once there was a full community that sang their prayers here, and they were all murdered, they all disappeared, and now we in the future are coming back and we're seeing their synagogue. And perhaps I think it's appropriate to just say the Shema when we're here.
Ma'anorah hamakom hazeh. This is a house of God. And, you know, I was listening to what you were saying before about the journey of the Jews from different parts. Maybe the people who were living in Poland, our ancestors, knew that this was an amazing place, but this wasn't their final place. That everybody, all of us, are on a journey. The arc of the journey is unclear. How many years it takes for us to get from where we were to where we have to go is not so clear. But for the Jews, even a place as Poland, which once was an amazing place, wasn't the end stop for our nation, for our people, for our history. The end place, as we know, is their country, is Israel. But whoever these people were knew that they needed to fill their lives with holiness, and this is what they did. So thank you, Shifra, for adding that insight. I think that's beautiful. So let's all together say the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
The story of history, the annals of history, is because really the Nazis did such a good job. And of course I use the word good in an ironic sort of way. But the destruction and the murder which they did here was so complete, and there were so few survivors that when I was growing up, if you would occasionally hear about a Holocaust survivor coming to speak, they wouldn't be coming from Chelmno. The stories of Chelmno barely reached the surface, barely even reached the historical record.
This is the wrong silence here. Every one of you has been given a Hebrew name. You have a Hebrew name because the name itself, Shem, the name of Shem, that's what a name is Sham. It's inside of you. It's there, in here. It's there. You know why you were given the names? Very often, some of you don't. But you think about the characteristics of those people. People that you had the names of. The people that you carry their names.
וזכני לגדל בנים ובני בנים חכמים ונבונים אוי אבי השם יראי אלוקים אנשי אמס זרע קודש בהשם דבקים
And she runs up to a German soldier and says, "Give me a messer." And he thinks, great, we're going to have some fun here. Because we're going to see a Jewish woman commit suicide on the ramp. He gives her his messer. She opens her coat. She takes out her bundle. And she gives her son a Brit Milah, a circumcision on the ramp. You need to be part of us, she screams. You're going to die as a Jew. You're going to come back into the covenant of Avram. You need to be part of us. And so when they came to Chelmno, they found a baby. And they found a knife. And they deduced the same thing here. Of parents that were about to go into the truck who must have realized, or their kid may have died. And the possibility of the same story taking place here. A few weeks later, Yeshivat Shalavim were coming here. And they asked them, please, don't bury the body, we will bury the body. And so they stood here and they buried the body. And we today are going to add to that grave, that symbolism, with whoever's in our hands. Our Sarah, our Rivka, our Avram, our Chana, our Rachel, whoever it may be. They're all in our hands. And we're going to bring them back to the place that they need to be in a Kever Yisrael.
And JROOTS' mission is to
חיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל במרומינו, עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל במרומיו.
אמן.
why we're standing in this little muddy, dark corner is because he gave a very famous speech over here. And when the Nazis were pressing him and said, we want people, and we're going to, and he understood that the list which he drew up were people who were going to be sent for death. And he didn't want people generally. He said what they told him is, we need non-workers. If the Lodz ghetto was known as a very starving place, known by the pot, it was also known as the working ghetto. And there's no such thing as a non-working person. If you were working, then you were of benefit to the Reich, and therefore we are going to be able to keep you alive.
This was such a vibrant city. Just look at the size of the cemetery. These are not all victims of the Holocaust. These are people who had lives. They were successful in business. They did so many. My great-grandfather's kever is over there. They were successful in business. They were a wealthy family. My dad told me he remembers that his father worked with his grandfather. They owned a hosiery factory. They were very wealthy. And at that time, as you know, buildings were not heated the way they were now. So it was a coal-heated building. One year there was a really intense coal snap in Lodz. And my grandfather, on my father's side, closed the factory and told my dad, take the coal that's in the factory and take some to each of the workers' houses so they'll have coal to warm themselves up. That's the values that animated part of this community. That's what this was about. And people thrived and they had simchas, and some people fell to illness. This is what Lodz was.
Ben-Zion Auerbach from Israel. Ben-Zion Auerbach had come and found his father's grave. But what's the story? Ben-Zion was 8 years old in the ghetto when his father died. And his father had gotten beaten up by the Germans in the Kripo inside the ghetto, come back battered and beaten. The mother had already passed away some time before. And the father basically dies at home in the ghetto. And who's left to take care of him? His children. His son Yosef is 10, and his other son Ben-Zion 8, and the daughter, I don't know what she is, the Rivka. But the two boys see their fathers died, and they take it upon themselves, and this is just so incredible to hear. They drag the body, these two kids, drag their father's body to the cemetery. It's the middle of the winter. They didn't quite get it right with the fields. They find a part of the cemetery near the path. They dig a hole, and they put the body in here, and the two little kids grab a huge stone and put it on top. The stone. And then, for the end of the story, then you can see his brother Yosef doesn't make it. Nor does the sister. It says here, Yeshem Yikom Damo. I don't know the details. Ben-Zion somehow survives. I don't know the full details. All I know is that he survives, makes Aliyah to Israel, eventually decades later comes back, and he's able to find his father's kever. They're not sending us directly because there are other priorities for the Germans. They're going to send troops to the front, send supplies there, and passenger trains to go through. So these journeys, which in theory could be just a couple of hours, could take a day. And then they could be waiting in the on the siding for a while before they process the victims. It's just awful.
Underneath here, there was bunkers and barracks of Jewish people who said, we've had enough. Either we're going to our death or we're going to fight. And they decided to fight as best as they could, knowing with the little arms that they had, that they didn't stand a fighting chance, but they weren't going to go down as sheep. And Irene played a big part. Irene played a part in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. She was told to go to a certain house in this neighborhood and knock on the door and not say anything. Have a certain knock and somebody will open the door and give her something and bring it down to Mila 18. And she did. And she went and the door, this is 1943. 1943. So she was born in 1928. So that makes her 15. She was born in February, so she's 15 years old. At this point, she has just her father because her sister has been murdered and her mother has been murdered and her brothers are now, she doesn't know where they are. Thankfully, they survived in Russia. But she's just her and her father. She goes to this door, she knocks on it, and they give her an envelope. They said, don't say a word, take it to this address and drop it off. And she did. And she found out later on that there were 2 bullets that she transported, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but to a 15-year-old, she said, I know that they use those bullets for good use, and I was happy to play a part in it.
Treblinka, the most advanced and refined of the systems, because as the Germans are going along, they're getting better at what they're doing, if you know what I mean. They're learning from their mistakes, and they're getting better and more efficient. Treblinka opens 23rd of July 1942, the first transport from Warsaw. It's in operation till October 1943. And we don't really know, but somewhere like 800, 900,000 Jews. Some of the people at the time, some of the commanders here who were arrested and other people estimate even higher. We don't really know, but we'll go with those numbers.
900,000.
Yes, 900,000. Again, the numbers are open to discussion, but no one really knows. But the estimations are, so 800, 900,000 here, 200, 250,000 Sobibor, 600 there. You do the maths, it's 1.6 million. 1.6 million of the 6. Again, the numbers are just estimates. We don't really know.
Treblinka was an unbelievably efficient death camp. It didn't have the complexities of Auschwitz-Birkenau. There were no crematoria here, so the bodies would be removed from the gas chambers, which the Germans called walking down Himmelstrasse, God's road, and they'd just be put down to rot after they were gassed, which affected the German soldiers terribly, so that Himmler, who ran all the death camps, decided that they had to do something to burn the bodies. So the bodies were burnt in front of open pits, and there are replicas of those pits around the camp. And as I said, the camp was totally destroyed as the Soviets were moving in on it. And it was turned over as farmland for Ukrainians, particularly those who helped the Nazis at that time. And to commemorate the deaths of Treblinka, about 17,000 stones were erected all around here. Different shapes, different sizes, different configurations, essentially representing a stone per daily death. And in addition, there were about 700 stones with country or city names, as you may have noticed as we came in: France, Germany, Italy, etc. And town stones like mine. Every town from which Jews were shipped to Treblinka was commemorated in a stone like this.
Shoalti Meis Hashem Oiso Avakesh Achas Shoalti Meis Hashem Oiso Avakesh Shifty Hashem, oh, kol yemei chayai, shefti, oh, b'vis Hashem, oh, kol yemei chayai, oh.
When the Godzilla will finally arrive here, it's going to change this whole city. Godzilla. Because the Hasidic arrives in here, and there were other Hasidic rabbis that were here, but the Godzilla was very famous. A man that came from Warsaw, a man that, by the way, most of us have got a connection to, because and Rabbi Meir Shapiro, the person from yesterday, wrote the Ketubah for Lubavitcher, and his wife. That's how well thought of the two of them were in Poland. You were in the place of giants.
The Jews were given a little bit of herring and that's it, no water.
Boris in Russian, Katsnal.
Known as now in Belarus, and we try to, as a family, come back.
UF. What it exactly stands for, I'm not quite sure. Not very early age, but when I finally, at the age of around 8 years old, came to a permanent foster home, slowly I was informed where I came from and who I was. But before I talk about my parents, I have to quickly tell you that because of as the aftermath of the Holocaust, nothing was constant, so there was chaos. And the chaos in my mind was there as well. So I had no trust in anybody. But as soon as I found out, because you didn't know that, but as a very small child after the war, my first religion and attendance of any institution was church. I used to go to church with my righteous among nations foster parents who knew I was a Jewish child and who I was placed with by the partisans and by other righteous among the nations. I want to go back to my parents, and I want to just instill on those who are parents, think about it, that you are a parent and you place your children or child in the care of somebody else. You're selfless enough. How horrific, especially an infant like myself, who was about 4 or 5 months old, and my sister 2 years old. They placed him in the care of other people who they trusted, and those people, I have to mention them now, the righteous among the nations. We should always honor them and remember them to the end of our days.
One thing I can tell you is I've never spoken at many shivas. I've never spoken at a shiva at Sobibor. What comes to mind, Gershon, is in the Haggadah of Pesach by the Halach Ma'anya. Towards the beginning of the Haggadah, it says that we mention the fact that we were once slaves and hungry, and then we say that all those who are hungry should come and eat. And the rabbis asked the question, why the need to mention that we were once slaves, we were once hungry? Why do we have to say that when we're inviting those who are hungry to come and eat, we can just invite them? Why the need to mention that we were once hungry? And the answer is that in life, a child of an addict can say, because my parent's an addict, therefore I'm an addict. Or the child of an addict can say, because my parent's an addict, I'm going to help addicts. In life, we see, here you feel it more than ever, that we're not in control of reality. We're not in control of our past. We're not in control of what Hashem had destined for our past. But what we are very much in control of is what we do with our future. Gershon, you have and had every living moment of your life the opportunity to say, hey, because I was once hungry, because I once suffered, others should suffer as well. But you chose to take the Jewish route, which is saying, because I didn't have an opportunity to experience love from a parent, because I didn't have an opportunity to experience the support, I'm going to give it to others.
There was a man named Avram Bomba, and Avram Bomba was in charge of the haircutting crew. And all of a sudden, coming down the Himmelstrasse, coming into this place over here, was the town. If I'm not mistaken, the town of Czestochowa that arrived. The barbers come, and one of the women who's undressed now sits in front of one of the barber, and he sees it's his wife. He was transported weeks before. His wife has now been transported with their children to be killed. And his wife's sitting on the stool where he's the barber. So he turns to Bomba, he says, I can't do it. And Bomba says to him, if you don't do it, they're going to kill you. He says, I can't do it, I can't. And he's persuaded Avram Bomba to do it. He does it more tenderly than he's done the others. Takes him more time because he can see the Germans not concentrating on him. And then he kisses his wife's neck and he says this to her. Go to the right hand side of the room. You'll be safe. Go to the right hand side of the room. She was not going to be safe. She was going to the gas chambers. But she had the feeling at least that her husband had looked after her to the very end. This is a crazy story about a man. He was here in the town of Zamość, about an hour away. He lived in the town of Zamość, okay? And his family were moved to the ghetto of Ishpitz, where we are right now. His family, okay, from the ghetto of Ishpitz, were then brought up to this place over here on Shabbat, I've forgotten the exact date, and were shot dead in this grave over here by the Germans. Yaakov Zvi, okay, Greiner was then told to run, okay, and he did. And he ran back to the town that he was in, and he found himself a family that would take him in, another righteous amongst the nations that took him in. As you heard from Gershon earlier on, okay, one of the places that he remembers is going to the church, okay, and this man as well went to the church. But the strange thing is, he went to the church, this man, and he didn't just go to the church. Yaakov Zvi Greiner became a priest, okay, a priest. and he became a very famous priest. Okay, he became the Archbishop of Lublin, and he was here in Poland. Survived. Sorry.
Sounds like Listerger in Poland.
That's right. He survived the war. Okay, in Poland. All his family had been killed, and he survived the war. People in the church don't know that he is a Jew. His name is Pawlo Grogowski. Okay, as you can see, Grzegorz Pawelski, excuse me, and he's the cardinal. Okay, or the priest of Lublin. In 1968, there is an anti-Soviet bloc against the Jews, because the Jews won, of course, 67-day war. And therefore, the Soviets who were backing the Arabs were not happy about this at all. And they were expelling Jews left, right, and center. He decided it doesn't matter what he's got to do now, and he spoke out. And he wrote an article about the fact that he's a Jew. Okay? Priest of Lublin, okay? And he's a Jew. And he wrote this article, and they wouldn't believe it, but the article actually got seen in Israel. His brother was alive in Israel, and he didn't know that his brother was the priest in Lublin.
I started speaking to my mother, because her mother had passed away that year. And her mother was very involved in our shul. She says, I spoke to my mother in heaven, and they said, Mom, I think God forgot about me. I think that the Jewish people forgot about me. And I think it's over with me. And she said, Mom, if God is still paying attention, let him show me a sign. What biggest sign is there than a rabbi walking in?
Did you sign her up?
So I said, Nikki, what are you doing for the Seder? It was a week before Pesach. She came to the Seder. And at the Seder I asked her, what are you doing for your son's bar mitzvah in a few weeks from now? Nothing. So I said, you have to have a bar mitzvah. So we did a bar mitzvah for the son. We sent him to Jewish camp that summer. He called me up from the camp and he says, Rabbi, I was just studying with my teacher here and I learned that Abraham had a bris when he was 99 years old. I never had a circumcision. I want to have a bris. And so the next morning we organized the bris. There was a moil that came. It was a camp in the Catskills. I had to travel like 8 hours. And I was a sandik. And I was holding a...
Every time you made a l'chaim with the next person, you were pushing back further and further the angel of death. Because l'chaim is the meeting of all energies. The word l'chaim is spelled Lamed Chet Yud Yud Mem. In the middle of the word is 2 yuds. It's when a Jew meets a Jew, a Yehudi meets a Yehudi, and they make a l'chaim together, and they understand the source of life. Having a Jew together in this place, okay? And if you want, the 3 letters that are still hanging over us there, the lechem is the source of all making sure that we have livelihood. He says to him, the Chayzav Levin says to him this, he says, when you make a l'chaim, you say to the person, I want to share my life with you.
A ceremony that does something for you. If you have a circumcision, if you get married, that changes you. Bar mitzvah doesn't change you. When you turn 12 or 13, you automatically become bar mitzvah. The ceremony is meant to impress on you your Jewish identity. We've been to places all around Poland so far that have repeatedly showed us that we're Jewish. We were singled out because we're Jewish. We have a Jewish identity. And my friend Logan here, who had a bar mitzvah ceremony, but didn't know his Jewish name, he found out from his mom yesterday. Logan's name is Chaim Baruch. Chaim is life. Baruch means blessed. It's a blessing for all of us to be here with Logan. And Logan's going to have a bar mitzvah because it's not about the dancing and the party. It's about my Jewish identity, who I am. Logan is Chaim Baruch. That's who he is. Chaim Baruch, a holy Jew. Torah.
that we don't always get to hold on to everything we want to hold on to. Things get taken from us. But I'm going to suggest that there are two things that will never be taken from anybody. Not you, not all of us. You can't take my neshama. It's mine. You can't take my neshama. It's me. It's who I am. It's my personality, what makes me happy, what makes me sad. That belongs to me. You can say things about me, you can do things to me, but me is my neshama, and it is mine and will always be mine. But will also be mine is my Hebrew name. Take my shirt, take my suitcase, take my house, take my car. You might even, God forbid, take my life, but my name was given to me. That's me. And that's why names mean so much.
In leaving here, I think we need to have something positive, and something that we can hold on to, and something that we can retain and remember forever. And so, a number of years ago, an individual in my synagogue, Petach Tikva in Toronto, partnered with a temple, a Reformed temple in Florida. The name is escaping me, and initiated what's referred to as Remember a Child program. And what I'd like to do is offer each of you a certificate of a child who was murdered during the Holocaust, where you won't see much information on this certificate other than the child's name, where they were born, possibly where they died, and maybe an age. And that child should be yours. In fact, I don't have any sons, as you know, but I have daughters, but I have one son. And he sits next to our Shabbos candles, and we remember him every single week, every time we light the candles. And so I encourage you to frame it and put it by your Shabbos candles, and that way you can give this child, whose parents were likely murdered, a name. I don't know what name you're going to get. We've seen some crazy stories, but we've even seen some of the younger participants take the name and name their child.
עם כל זה החג אלוהי וכל יום שיבוא אני מאמין באמונו שלנו כי לא ישכח מפזרון כי לא ישכח תוירו מישראל
she said, just in case, while you walking to Mila 80, it was maybe 15, 20 minutes from where I used to live, she said, don't tell them what it is. Just say, just in case they ask you what the package is, just tell them you found and you was thinking it's a piece of bread, so you picked it up. No matter how they're going to beat you up, to tell them how did you get this package, and don't give in, no matter what happens. Anyways, I took the package and I walked and I saw lots of Germans and I felt like one German looks at me, so I just went into the crowd with the other people, and finally I came to Mila 18. Mila 18, she said, was on the second floor, on the right side of the door. Not the door. If somebody enters the door, don't talk to them. Just hand over the package and run back. And that's what I did. After a couple of days, they killed, with those bullets, they killed 2 Germans, and the other Germans did find out, and they want for them to surrender. But those young people wouldn't surrender, so they burned the building with all those young kids. And I'm sure you saw the monument from Mila 18. So this was Mila 18.
Rabbi Shimon ben Yechui oy mae, Rabbi Shimon ben Yechui oy mae. Chas 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 v'shulem shetish takach toiru, toiru toiru me Yisru. Rabbi Shimon ben Yechui oy mae, Rabbi Shimon ben Yechui oy mae. Chas 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 v'shulem shetish takach toiru, toiru toiru me Yisru.
He knows how to sing, and people say, it's an amazing thing to think about. When you deal with what's taking place here, the stories are true, because I've met them. One night, two of these people, were taken to the canteen in the SS, okay, and they had to play music for them. They realized what the day was.
and she started to rummage through a small dresser of drawers that was next to the bed, looking maybe there's a blanket or something. And instead, she finds an album. And she starts to open up this album and look at these pictures. And if you want to talk about hashgacha pratit or faith or karma or something like that, here we are, she is, hundreds of miles from Auschwitz, even that much further than her hometown in Hungary. And she starts to see these were pictures which were taken on the very day when her community was brought to its destruction in Auschwitz. And she's able to find the last pictures of her brothers, and she's able to find the last pictures of her grandparents, and she's even able to find a picture of herself in the work camp. And we're going to be looking at a number of those photographs this afternoon as we go through the relevant places in Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Let's just stop and understand that for a moment. We talked about it in my diary. I did a little bit of an exercise together so we can mentally associate what we see there with here. We don't know the number of victims here, but we do know that there were Jews murdered here. The Polish Jews from the vicinity were murdered here. The big transports coming in from other places were sent to Birkenau. This was also used as, I think at first for the Russian prisoners here, prisoners of war. I think they were murdered here. No, that was inside the room over there. Okay. But they used, this was not also, as far as I'm aware, not used on a consistent basis like in Birkenau. It was every now and then. It wasn't every day as they were in Birkenau, but nevertheless, we're in a gas chamber. So this to understand that. The scratches on the wall are not from the time. They're from...
that came off a very, very similar train car. His name was Hugo Lowy.
Maybe some of you have heard of Peter Lowy. Peter Lowy was until he sold it right before COVID, how he knew how to sell, when to sell is unbelievable. But Peter Lowy used to own Westfield. Ever heard of the Westfield malls? That was owned by Peter Lowy until he sold it. And Peter Lowy was on a one of these Passover vacation programs in Palm Springs. But the problem was that Peter Lowy never knew what happened to his father. One day his father was rounded up in Hungary and disappeared. He never knew what happened. He never had closure. It always ate him up on the inside. And he went to Palm Springs on one of these Passover programs, and he was in the hotel store, and he was buying a Wall Street Journal. And the cashier said, "You want to pay for it? Or you want to bill it to your room?" He said, "Bill it to my room." And they asked him his name. He said his name, Frank Lowy. And there was somebody else in the store at the moment and said, "You're a Lowy?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm also a Lowy." Two Lowys. What do you do? Play geography. That took you too long. Play Jewish geography. Right, exactly right. And in 2 seconds they find out that they're not related. And Frank Lowy turns to this other Lowy and says, "Oh, I was so hoping that we were related, because if we were related, I was so hoping that you would have known what happened to my father." He says, "Who's your father?" He says, "Well, I just told you to figure out if we were related. Hugo Lowy's my father." He says, "Well, we're not related, but I was on the same train that Hugo Lowy was on." Frank is now trying to hold this guy, trying to not fall on the ground, and says, "Well, you got to tell me what happened to my father." He says, "I was right there." He says, "Your father got off the train at Birkenau, the dogs were barking, the rifle butts were hitting, the Nazis were screaming, shouting, get into the line, get into formation. And your father got off the train, like everybody else, and was told to line up. And then your father realized that he had forgotten something. So he turned around to go back to the train to get what he had forgotten, his little pekalach. And you don't do that. You don't do that." The Nazi guard saw him and said, "What the hell are you doing? Get back in formation." And Mr. Lowy, Hugo Lowy, goes up to the guard and says, No. I forgot one item. I promise I'll be right back. I just don't have to go get it." And the guard was like, "What is this? This is not possible for you to speak like this, for you to act like this. You're cool, calm, collected. You know exactly what you're doing in this massive chaos, and you think that you have the chutzpah to be able to walk in a different direction than everybody else and not follow the orders that were screaming at you?" And I don't remember if he takes out a gun, he shoots him at that moment, or he beats him to death with the butt of his rifle. But where we're standing was the end of Hugo Lowy.
See Gisela Pearl was here or in another one of these sorts of latrines. And Gisela Pearl described what happened here as follows. "I delivered women pregnant in the 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th month, always in a hurry, always with my 5 fingers in the dark under terrible conditions. No one will ever know what it meant to me to destroy these babies. After years and years of medical practice, childbirth was still to me the most beautiful, the greatest miracle of nature. I love those newborn babies, not as a doctor, but as a mother. And it was again and again my own child whom I killed to save the life of the woman." And after the war, with all of the life that she allowed these mothers to have, she still sunk into a horrible depression, and she was having trouble moving on until her daughter and several others took her and said, "You must grab life."
And the architects that won the competition created these chairs as a way of symbolically remembering the girl that walked with the upside down chair. Now, it's art, so you can interpret it any way you like. My interpretation is that these are empty chairs, symbolizing the emptiness of the ghetto, that they were basically all transported out of here, and then the ghetto was liquidated, and there were no more Jews in the ghetto. Because basically, almost, not all of them, but many of them were murdered. And so these chairs, these empty chairs, commemorate the emptiness. Now, I always ask groups this question. I always say, we're back. We're back. Should we sit on these chairs? Should we reclaim the fact that we've come back louder, prouder, stronger?
In our shuls, we're going to make sure we're going to keep in our hearts the fact that the chairs are empty here, but that's going to stand as a reminder that's going to inspire us to try to bring more people, more Judaism, more Yiddishkeit, more mitzvahs, and more engagement of the community.
Took us in the seats, my friend. I mean, come on, we need to fill the shuls and we need to fill the schools. Took us in the seats campaign. I'm telling you, it's a winner.
It's a tagline.
TOT. Took us on the dish.
Especially even right here in front of us, where we can bring life and smile and be happy and be proud of who we are. Jewish Toronto, we had an incredible week together, okay? And we did. And at the insistence that the Living Legacy is very much Toronto-based, because we have to strengthen Toronto. We need to be strong Jews. And so there's an insistence that we do this together, we come back together as strong Jews. The essence of the Living Legacy are the precious survivors that we have, which is really what the Living Legacy is saying. I shudder to think what the world will be like without our survivors in one day. I think about it all the time. And the fact that Joseph and Irene couldn't be with us really brought that to life and really made it challenging to be with that idea that there may be a time where they're not with us anymore. But we have them, and how lucky we are to have them. The wisdom, the smile, the love that they brought will stay with us forever. Look at these two. Look at these beautiful neshamas. Both beautiful. We're both beautiful. What they've given to this world is priceless. You can't even put a dollar amount. The value that they bring, the warmth that they bring, the wisdom, and just the joie de vivre. It's unbelievable. I don't know how you have the strength. I know Queenie gives you the strength, and Jane the same with you.
No, I got 3 hours of sleep today.
Yeah, I did too.
I stood, us two stood at the right, literally at the border with Belarus. We saw the riverbank there, and we saw the forest beyond there. And we tried to envision ourselves as family members, as parents, or as children. What will we do right on that bank? Will we jump into the river and swim across? Maybe we'd be safe. And many people did that. And then Zvi told us that even if you were in the forest and it was full 50-foot trees, they were chased into the forest and murdered. And with bus 3 and 4, we were together in Markova. Those of you on bus 1 and 2 who may not have been there maybe can't picture where Markova was, but we were in a remote town. Think of, I don't know, Oro Medante 3. That's what we were. Literally, small roads, one lane, nobody walking by. Everybody has a humongous parcel of land. And when we pulled up a driveway, we walked at least half a kilometer up the driveway, and we were shown a tiny attic where a family was living. Way deep into there was no way anybody could find you. The thought, first of all, that family had to go so far into that forest. It wasn't even a forest, it was a farm. And not only were they found, they were murdered, and the people that held them were murdered as well. I come every year and I say to myself, the first few years I've been saying, why did they have to go through this? Why did children have to lose their parents? Why did parents have to lose their children? Why was so much suffering happen to them? And I've come to realize that I don't have an answer for that. But it has made me realize something else. I am living now. I am here, it's 2025. And now I'm saying, instead of why them, why me? Why me? Why am I living now? What's my purpose of being here? I can live freely. I can wear a kippah, no problem, anywhere I want in the entire world. I can pray as a Jew no matter what. I have a country that I can go to which Jews for 2,000 years couldn't go. Why are we the lucky generation who can live in Israel? Why us? So there's a higher purpose for us. So we need to start asking ourselves, why me? Why am I here now? So I wanted to end with the final thought. The next week is going to be really hard. Really hard. But you're going to look in front of that mirror, and I want you to think to yourself, have this thought that I'm going to give you. 4 words in front of that mirror. Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough?
In a house so far from home, we're surrounded yet so alone. When I fall, you help me rise.
Well, make something very clear. And she writes it, and I totally subscribe to this. Tragedy is not a Jewish motif. We have a happy ending. And if the story that you're reading is at a negative down, it just means that the last chapter has not yet been written. That's all. And we are going to write that last chapter. Because we do not end with tragedy. We are not a nation of victims. I said it. Jonathan said it yesterday in JCC. We're not victims. It doesn't end with tragedy. It doesn't end with death. It doesn't end with death.
stand in the place over here where our journeys are going in a different direction. Thank God to the journeys of these people. But you have to understand those journeys and understand that each one of us, every step we take, every move we make, not the police and sting, okay? Alright, but every step that we take, we need to think about where we're going and what we're going to do. And what you're going to do with this experience. The experience itself can slip through our fingers and it can just be another one that we're taking lots of photos on. Or I hope what we understand here, this has been an experience that's really going to move us. And an experience that we're going to think about what we're doing with our lives and how we're going to write the next page in the chapter of the Jewish people together. Wherever you may be, whatever you do it, however you do it. But we need to make sure that that legacy is alive. Okay, here.